Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never practice nunchucks in a crowded room. Never eat chole before a road trip. Always take your shirt off before you iron it. Don't take a call near a swimming pool. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The thing about the Israelis is that when they carry out operations, particularly military plus intelligence operations, they give you very little details. In fact, sometimes in the past, details haven't come up for months, even for years, and then books get written. Probably that's because they are successful more often than most of the others. And that's why there is this surgical, clinical quality to their operations, as we saw last week on 27th of September with the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, the Hezbollah chief, along with his key commanders. Now, since then, there is something else that needs watching. First of all, I will tell you what we know in terms of what weapons were used, how these were used, and also how these weapons work. We'll come to that. But before that, let's also see what's been happening since then. And there is no better place to see that than to go to the Twitter handle of IDF, that is Israeli Defense Forces. So go to the Twitter handle. There is also the spokesman, Daniel Hagari, speaking there. Also listen to him. You will find the odd short video. I will run just one for you for a few seconds as we go along at some point. So you can hear him explain what happened with the Nasarallah strike. After that, he's spoken against about other strikes. The important thing is also how they've been listing people they have struck since the Nasarallah strike and eliminated them, assassinated them, or if you prefer to use that euphemism that Indian security forces have invented, and for some reason, Indian media has also willingly adopted or embraced, neutralized in place of killed. I don't see why do you have to say 3 terrorists neutralized. Why not just kill? But for some reason, it is seen as a euphemism, as if it means any less of a death for a terrorist than just saying they got killed. Nevertheless, Israelis have no such hesitations, and they list out these names as well. So see the names that they've listed out after the Nasrallah assassination, because attacks, bombings have continued after that. In fact, not only have the bombings continued in southern Lebanon, which Hezbollah dominated, and where Israelis had already issued warnings to other people, civilians, to evacuate. In fact, those warnings are also seen on IDF Twitter handle. Beyond that, after more than 2 decades, Israelis also hit a place in central Lebanon. This was an apartment complex in central Lebanon where they hit the leadership of PFLP, which is Arab. It is Arab and Sunni. It is Palestinian. It is not, unlike Hezbollah, it is not Shia and Lebanese. This is Arab and Palestinian. PFLP, that is Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine, used to be very active in the past, 30-40 years ago, until 30-40 years ago, then declined, but still is quite strong in Lebanon, has strong cells there and can carry out actions in Israel. So see these tweets. These tweets will run on your screen. These are the ones that IDF Twitter handle lists. This is after. First of all, watch Israeli spokesman Daniel Hagari explain what happened with the Nasrallah raid.
Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of the terrorist army Hezbollah, was killed by Israel Defense Forces in a precise strike in Beirut last night while he was in Hezbollah's central headquarters commanding more imminent attacks against the people of Israel.
Now see the others that they claim to have eliminated after this raid. So there is the PFLP raid, that is PFLP leader Nidal Abdul Al, who is the head of Lebanon branch of PFLP, then the head of the military office of PFLP in Lebanon, that is Imad Odeh. Both of these, the IDF says, were assassinated or killed in military operations based on intelligence, or intelligence-based military operations, that's the expression they use. Then they say that Fateh Sharif, who is the Lebanon branch chief of Hamas, he was also taken out or assassinated. Then they've also displayed this map. This map with aerial pictures tells you, or the claim is this map with aerial pictures tells you or makes the claim that the Hezbollah operational headquarters in southern Lebanon was located within 53 meters of the UN school there. So the charge in this case is that Hezbollah deliberately positions its headquarters and key leaders close to important civilian areas so that probably the fear of collateral damage will prevent Israelis from carrying out operations. Then there are more names. Commander of Hezbollah's Preventative Security Unit and an aide of Nasarallah. Then also the head of the missile unit of Hezbollah, Hussein Ahmad Ismail, and his deputy as well. This is the list that IDF claims of people that they've eliminated, assassinated, killed since Nasrallah's assassination. Now, what exactly are they using and how is this happening? Now, we know that this is being done by Israeli Air Force. In fact, they mention it. It's being done by Israeli Air Force. It's not as if any surface-to-surface missiles are being fired by the Israelis. That might not be so precise or probably might cause too much damage. In this case, what's been used in most of these cases, not that attack in central Lebanon. That one on the PFLP location was not a big bomb. That was a precise attack, maybe with smaller missiles, much smaller missiles, a very precise attack on a few apartments in an apartment building, which building remained intact. So that is qualitatively and also in terms of the tonnage of the weapon system, the weight of the weapon system is much more precise and much smaller. However, what was used in the case of the attack on Hassan Nasrallah, that flattened at least six full buildings, and the weapon used was a bomb that can go through these buildings, that can go through meters of concrete. It is supposed to go through meters of concrete and go deep inside up to 60 meters, and then explode. This is not a very modern weapon. This weapon, actually, the basic weapon has been around for more than 30 years now. The basic weapon is the BLU-9. BLU stands for Bomb Live Unit. BLU-109 bomb, which was built by the Americans. Now the Israelis also make it. And this has been rigged with JDAM guidance kits. What is JDAM guidance kit? JDAM simply means Joint Direct Attack Munition, right? Why joint? Because this was developed jointly by the American Navy, US Navy, and the US Air Force. So as simple as that. That's why Joint Direct Attack Munition. JDAM is not an ammunition, is not a munition, not a bomb by itself. This is just the eyes and ears and the engine of a bomb. So you can take a dumb gravity bomb, fit a JDAM onto it, and it can then guide it precisely up to about 28 kilometers in its original version. But I now read that the more modern, the newer JDAM kits can give it longer range as well. How much was the range from which the Israelis fired this? Which aircraft they used it, they haven't yet disclosed, and that's the reason I said a lot of Israeli operations, the details don't come out for a very long time. But these bombs were used is now well known, well acknowledged. Authoritative global media is acknowledging it. Now this bomb, in its heaviest version or heaviest rendering, maybe 2,000 pounds, which is precisely, say, 907 kilos. If it is that much of a bomb, which is the heaviest one, then it will completely destroy an area of 35 meters radius or 115 feet. That is based on an analysis carried out by Project on Defense Analysis, PDA, and that is something that Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, has quoted, and that's where I'm taking it from. Now it looks like 80 of these bombs, 80 of these bombs were used in that Nasrallah raid. That is why all these buildings, these are big buildings, all of them got completely flattened. This bomb, BLU-109, BLU-9, many versions of BLU, in fact, all NATO countries use it. Also, many of America's major non-NATO allies, which include Pakistan as well, They also have the basic version of the BLU 09, etc., etc., etc. That is the bomb live unit. Pakistan Air Force also has that bomb. Not JDAM, but that bomb Pakistan Air Force also has. Since it got married to JDAM, and that became the preferred weapon, because who uses dumb gravity bombs anymore? Using gravity bombs would mean aircraft will have to go over the target or too close to the target for its own safety, which means air defenses could catch you. You will be vulnerable to ground-based missiles, etc. That's why modern air forces now use standoff weapons so that aircraft and pilots can be protected. And that's what the Israelis have also done in this case. And that's why the standard issue now is something that's married with the guidance kit. Now, if a country has the JDAM system, it gets married with that. Otherwise, it can be something else. Remember 25 years ago, when India first started making effective hits with the Mirages in Kargil, that happened because they were able to rig their own bombs with laser guidance kits. These laser guidance kits had been imported from Israel, and Israelis had supplied them almost overnight when India needed it, because India discovered that their use of gravity bombs, rockets, etc. was not working. If anything, first of all, it was imprecise, it was causing collateral damage or was just wasteful. And second, it was rendering IAF aircraft vulnerable because they had to go too low and too close to the target. So Pakistani troops on the ground, and Pakistani troops are awash with shoulder-launched missiles. So they were firing those missiles. That's how India lost two MiG variants in the very early stage of the war, a MiG-21 and also a MiG-27. This was among the Mi-8s which had rocket pods rigged onto them and which were being used. Very slow, heavy helicopter, not really designed for a combat role, definitely not on those altitudes, but these were desperate times. So one of these helicopters was also lost at Tololing, again to a shoulder-fired missile, and one more photo reconnaissance Canberra was hit by a Pakistani missile. It took the hit in one engine, but it's a large, big, powerful, strong aircraft, very robust aircraft. So despite the hit, the pilot was able to land it back in Srinagar. That experience told Indian Air Force as well that now you need standoff weapons and precise weapons. So in 1999, 25 years ago, these bombs had been rigged with laser guidance systems. Now this stuff has become much more advanced. And what the Israelis are using is the most advanced version of it. That is the JDAM linked bombs, which is now simply called GBU. So what was BLU, Bomb Live Unit, rigged with JDAM guidance system, has now become GBU, which is Guided Bomb Unit. JDAMs have been manufactured by the Americans since 1998. In fact, if I look at the data, by Jan 24 this year, 550,000 JDAM systems have been manufactured. Americans have plenty of them. These are also being sold to or given to American allies. Also, Ukrainian Air Force, the few aircraft that they have still operational, they've been using JDAM ammunition in some selected attacks on Russian bases, ammunition dumps, etc., as well. Now, we do understand that Israeli Air Force is operating in a situation in an environment of total air superiority, because all these are operations against non-state forces. These are proxies. These may be proxies of Iran, but Iran is not there. No, I'm not sure how much Iranian Air Force could have done in this situation, but the fact is that Iranian Air Force is not there. Iranian forces are not there. Radars, missiles are not there. Syrian Air Force is not intervening in this situation. And Lebanon does not have any armed forces of any consequence. In any case, they will stay out of it because southern Lebanon is really Hezbollah's territory. It's a state within a state. So it becomes very different for an Air Force if they can operate in a completely secure, unchallenged environment, which means your pilots, your ground controllers all have the time. You have the time, you can plan, you can guide your weapons, you can get your bomb damage assessment in time. All of that is there because just as you're carrying out this bombing or you finish this bombing, drones are floating in that area. You also have agents on the ground. That's the reason you're getting so many videos of the precise moment these bombs struck these buildings. So that stuff is not so challenging, once again, when you have total air superiority. When you are not up against any sovereign state, it's very different from an India, Pakistan, India, China kind of situation because there are sovereign states at the other end. The important thing is knowing where Nasrallah is, in which building, in which bunker, how deep, what is it that you target, where his people are, and when you drop these bombs, will he be actually there or not? So remember when the story first broke on 27th night Indian time that this attack had been carried out and probably Nasrallah was dead. Soon enough stories came out that he had survived. In fact, many of the publications, I saw Jerusalem Post. Initially they said Nasrallah dead, but I went home late night, post dinner also I checked, my dinner is very late. Post dinner also I checked. I thought, let me see what is Jerusalem Post saying. Jerusalem Post had updated the story by then, saying that the story has been updated following reports that Nasrallah may be alive or following lack of confirmation that he's dead. And that stayed like that for some time because the impression was that, look, he's such a big leader. How can the Israelis catch him so easily? So he must have escaped. And how would the Israelis know that he hasn't escaped? It's only after some time when the IDF issued a statement saying that he's been killed, they confirmed it, that the world believed it. Then in the course of time, the next day, Hezbollah also issued a statement admitting that he had been killed. So from where does that information come? That is the key to these operations. That's why these operations are so successful and so precise. And that comes from Israeli intelligence. Now I will share with you two articles. One is from the New York Times under multiple bylines. The second is from the Haaretz newsletter, which I see regularly. Both tell you that since 2006, since the last war the Israelis fought with Hezbollah in Lebanon, which was sort of an inconclusive war. Israelis suffered a lot of casualties. Israelis would like to believe that they won the war and they came back, but Hezbollah on the other hand think that, look, we may have been damaged very badly, we suffered very heavy casualties, much heavier than Israel, but for the Israelis to lose 3,000 lives for a small nation like that, that's a lot of casualties. For a small nation like that, which takes pride in minimizing casualties, that was a big loss. So Hezbollah found reasons also to call it their victory. In a way, it was kind of a drawn match or a narrow points victory for the Israelis. Since then, the Israelis have worried. One, they have chafed that they were not able to finish Hezbollah fully. Second, they worried that Hezbollah has the manpower, unlike the Palestinians at the other end or Hamas at Gaza. And also, Iranians have a direct corridor to them, ultimately through Syria, but also through the coast, through the Lebanese coast. That's why they've been building their intelligence since then. And these two stories tell us about this 18-year intelligence preparation. Because it's one thing to say, oh, look at these JDAMs with these big GBUs. Look at their penetrative power. They can go through so much concrete and so much underground. So however deep your bunker might be, they'll take you out. But more important than the penetration of these bombs is the intelligence penetration of the adversary's core personnel. And that is where the Israelis have done very well. And that's where the Israeli investment in intelligence has paid off. The 2006 war lasted 34 days. It ended with the Union-mediated ceasefire. Israelis didn't like it. Something that came up as a consequence was this massive investment, as I mentioned, in intelligence and also unit called Unit 8200, Unit 8200, which uses cyber technologies at the very cutting edge. And they've been working now together with NSA, US NSA, that is the US government's national security agency, which also specializes in cyber and electronic intelligence. Now Unit 8200, you might remember the name came up when the Pegasus controversy broke out. And in fact, I talked about it in some detail in the CTC episode on the Pegasus controversy. The Unit 8200 link in that case was that the Pegasus system had been designed and marketed by a company called NSO. NSO was founded by Niv Karmi, Shalev Julio, and Omri Lavi. Niv Karmi, so N comes from there. Shalev Julio, S comes from there. Omri Lavi, O comes from there. NSO. all three used to work with Unit 8200. So these are the tricks that might have learned at Unit 8200, which they now converted into something of commercial value, which could only be sold to other sovereign states. This is military grade spying intelligence equipment. So you can see if three former Unit 8200 staffers could create something like this, what is it that Unit 8200 itself might be doing? So they've been investing also more money, the Israelis, in more drones, more satellites over Lebanon, and that has been going on, and that's how they figured out in which building weapons are stored, in which building missile launchers are stored, in which building key officials of Hezbollah are living in. And that's why this attack, which has gone on for several days now, has been so successful. They've also been able to place undercover commandos deep inside southern Lebanon in areas where Hezbollah would not expect to find them. Now, the success of this new system, these new investments have been showing for some time. There was, for example, the assassination in Syria of Imad Mughniya. We'll try and find you a picture. He was supposed to be the brain behind the military operations of then Jan 2020. Remember Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Quds force of IRGC? He was assassinated by the Americans as he was coming out in a convoy from Baghdad International Airport. What happened in this case? Just before that, he had come to Damascus. In Damascus, he had gone in a convoy to Beirut to meet Nasarallah. Now, Israelis had the opportunity of killing him, but they did not, because at that point, they did not want to risk a larger regional war. So what they did was they informed the Americans, and as he landed Baghdad, because the Israelis were tracking them, I hardly need to tell you that the Israeli and the American intelligence work very closely together. So he was put away by the Americans in this case. Again, this year in July, Fuad Shukr, who was one of the older and really famous or infamous Hezbollah people, he was killed. He was responsible or supposedly responsible for the 1983 bombing in Beirut, which killed 300 US and French soldiers in Beirut. These were peacekeepers. Also, they've been able to use similar precise intelligence to attack Iranian missile-making factories located in Syria. And what intelligence work of this detail and this skill and this tech prowess could achieve, we've seen already in the pagers operation. A lot of this detail I get from an article written by Amir Tibu in Haaretz newspaper. And he writes some analysis as well, which would help us conclude this episode of Kartak Letter. This and another columnist in Haaretz, who I will mention in a minute. He says, first of all, he gives you the reason why Israel failed so spectacularly, the same intelligence, the same military, which has done so brilliantly now, militarily brilliantly, irrespective of which side you are on, in Lebanon, fighting Hezbollah, which is a much stronger enemy than Hamas. How did it fail so badly on October 7 when Hamas was able to carry out this attack? He says one of the reasons is that the Israelis for a long time had started thinking that Hamas is just a distraction, that Hamas is no real threat, Hamas is collecting weapons, because the general understanding or belief was that Netanyahu was not unhappy to see Hamas growing. In fact, he was okay to see Hamas growing. He also helped them along by looking the other way as more weapons and more money came in from Qatar, because he thought a strong force like that would challenge Fatah, which is a more conventional Palestinian challenge to him. Also, through this, Hamas also acquired political control of Gaza, which also suited Netanyahu. So Netanyahu at one point articulated his policy with a very interesting expression. He said, quiet will be met with quiet, which means, aap kuch mat kariye, hum kuch nahi karenge. That you can collect what weapons and money you want. As long as you are of no nuisance to us, we will not come and interfere with you. This is the quiet that Hamas broke on October 7. In fact, just a week before October 7, writes Amir Tibu, Netanyahu had finalized one more agreement with Hamas to let them bring more weapons and money from Qatar, and also to issue more work permits for Palestinians living in Gaza to come to work in Israel. In that process, he lowered his guard. So it looks like in this vicious game, it's not as if only one side is smart. It's evident that in this vicious game, it's not just one side that's smart. The other side can be smarter at some point. So on that day, October 7, Hamas were smarter. However, in the big picture, was it smart of them to have done what they did on October 7th? Smart from their point of view? I don't know. I think they might be reviewing what happened, because that has now unleashed this larger war in the Middle East. Now, what this war means, particularly to the Israelis, Israeli public opinion, Netanyahu's ratings, by the way, have been going up, not that much, but a little bit. They had been sliding earlier. This analysis we get from another column in Haaretz by Dalia Schneidlin, and what this means to public opinion in Israel and what it means to the people of Israel or the state of Israel, we get from another fine analysis in Haaretz written by Dalia Schneidlin. And she says that these events conjure a self-image Israelis once reveled in, small, tough and deadly for the sake of protecting itself, using cutting-edge intelligence or technology where needed, and conjured daring assassinations like, say, Munich. That was the revenge for the Olympic massacre, Munich Olympic massacre. And she says some of this has come back because of this successful operation against Hezbollah. And she says Israelis have seen many phases. After 1967, there was a national high because it was just a 6-day war and Israel demolished all its much bigger rivals. 1973 was tough. So this 1 year, she says, since October 7, this 1 year, Israelis have suffered a post-1973 kind of low mood, that they were taken by surprise and they came up short. They were attacked inside their territory. They did poorly that day and they had been still smarting. These operations in Lebanon, first the pager attacks and now the assassination of Nasarallah and others, she says, have created a post-1967 kind of stardust. I'm quoting from her article. And the line from her article is, this is the symbolic weight of the pager attacks and the bombardments of his positions in Lebanon since then. However, Dalia also makes a case for Israel to avoid the temptation of physically invading southern Lebanon and occupying it by invoking the words of the Prime Minister of Israel in 1967, Levi Eshkol, who had then said that we Israelis want the dowry but not the bride. What is the dowry? Dowry is the land, bride is the people, because Israel occupied a lot of the West Bank areas which came with Palestinian people. So dowry is the land, bride is people and the cost of keeping them. So once again, she cautions Israel to avoid the temptation of going and grabbing more dowry in southern Lebanon.